everyone. Good morning. It is day 25. Spiritual health care. Another morning, another day. Hope everybody is doing really, really well. Wait for everybody to kind of log in. Hopefully we see some new faces and whatnot today. It is good to see everybody. I hope you guys had a great Easter weekend. It was, of course, long weekend. Lots of people looking to celebrate Easter in some very different ways this year. But I hope you guys had a great weekend. It was really good here. I'm all happy because I have a new desk chair. This is like my big news for the day. I spent last evening putting that together, and I'm in love with it because I've been using this terrible chair up until now. So this was a big deal for me. So anyway, we've got some really, really cool questions today. It's going to be a really interesting morning, I think, because we're going to be covering a number of topics that some of it's related to yesterday's class, and some of it is brand new, some of the stuff we have not chatted about before. Hi Patricia, hi Jay, hello to everybody that's logging in. It's good to see you guys. Good morning. But so we've got some cool topics, and one of the topics that I want to throw out there today is talking about legacy and legacies with within families and both the spiritual side of it and the paranormal side of it. So we're going to be going into that as well. Things like, whether or not some of this stuff is hereditary. When this stuff seems to be passed down through families, what does that mean? So we're going to be talking about that today as well. We've got some pretty cool questions and cool topics. Hello to everybody logging in. Hi Nigel. Is this not the coolest chair you've ever seen? It is the nicest chair, and it is so comfortable. My back was just killing me on the other one that I had. It was just not good. So I'm like, so it was really good. So I'm so excited about this chair today. It's great. So welcome everybody. It's good to see everybody be joining. Good morning, Brandy. I hope you guys are having good weather. We are in the midst of getting a bit of rain today here in Alberta, so I hope you guys are doing okay where you are. Feel free, as I say, please throw questions and stuff like that in the chat, because if I don't get to them at all, then I will get to them either tomorrow or another class. So please keep adding questions and stuff like that to the chat, because I always grab them. I always go through them afterwards as well, to just pick up on what you guys were talking about and anything I missed while I was chatting. So definitely please do that. You guys are fueling these sessions all the time. You guys are fueling it just with the amazing amount of positive energy you guys bring, the questions, the topics, all of that. You guys are what makes these awesome. So please keep the questions coming. They've just all been fantastic. So I want to start today with a question, actually that came from Shadow, and I love this because it does pertain to what we chatted about yesterday. For those of you guys who missed yesterday's spiritual healthcare class, we did a deep dive on grief and the various aspects of grief and what that ends up looking like in various areas, and the different ways that we can start to deal with the grief about finding just a new way of being as we move forward into this world that is different, right? It's just different. So there was a lot of talk about that, a lot of talk about dealing with grief if you've lost somebody and all of that. Good morning, Brian. How are you? Good morning, Rick. So Shadow's question is great, and she starts with this. She says, you mentioned in previous shows on spiritual healthcare that spirit doesn't need help with moving on. With that being said, if some spirits seem to be sticking around on this plane, could it be because they know they are going to be reincarnated? Could it be refusing to move on as it's easier to stay on the same plane? What have you learned? I love this. I love this question. This is so cool. Shadows, your questions are so good. Good morning, Deds. Good morning, Dawn. Good morning, Mark. So I love this question. So ultimately it's a really hard thing to know, because we only have so much. We can only make so many assumptions about the workings of non-physical. We really won't know until we get there, I think. But when we look at things like reincarnation, it's probably the strongest argument that people have made in regards to survival after death from a scientific perspective. So when we get into things like reincarnation and kids that are remembering things they seemingly shouldn't, like past lives and stuff like that, usually if there's going to be a debate about that, the idea and reincarnation studies usually come up. So probably one of the most significant studies into that was done by Ian Stevenson, started in about 1960. He won Best Paper for this, and it had to do with reincarnation and child prodigies. So where are these kids getting this information? Like, they seem to just be flowing, musical abilities, or, when they haven't had any lessons, things like that. We look at people like Mozart or Beethoven, or, some of the greats, and it seems like they've had, some of them seem to have had no lessons. Of course, Beethoven, Mozart studied like crazy. But some of these kids they pick stuff up and suddenly they're just doing it. So in 1961, the Parapsychology Foundation actually studied they put some money into his studies, Ian Stevenson, and they ended up collecting a remarkable amount of data. They found that kids start recollecting this stuff between 2 and 5 years old, and lots of things like unlearned languages, birthmarks that don't make sense, or are attributed to an injury that the person that they believe they were had at some point. And 20% talked about something called intermission, which they believe is like the space between us being in non-physical and then coming and manifesting here. So it's really interesting. So that's mostly about reincarnation, and where it sits. So, do they hang around because it's just easier to manifest later? I don't know. But we do see usually some resemblance to the personality of the person that was here originally within these interactions of spirit. So, for example, somebody who say was missing their mother or something like that, and their mother has passed away, and then they have that interaction with that spirit within this plane, they seem to still maintain that personality and whatnot, and they seem to go on for years later. They have these great interactions and talking and whatnot. So I think the question within this question, if we go down the rabbit hole a little bit here, within this question is, are we just one permanent extension of that which is non-physical, whatever it is for you, the universe or God or source, or whatever terminology you want to use, or just universal intelligence? Are we just an extension of that, or can it manifest more than one idea? Are we a multitude of ideas? So we could really sink down the rabbit hole, but the end result really to this question is we just don't know. Does it know that it's going to be reincarnated? I don't think that question really has ever been asked during a channeling session. I have not heard of it being asked. But I think we can at least take a look at the data in front of us when it comes to things like reincarnation and things like that, and start to piece some things together in terms of, yes, these people seem to have a continuing interaction with that thought form or intelligence that seems to represent their loved one. That aspect of them seems to still be accessible. So if this is a situation where, somebody is being reincarnated or something like that, I guess that's one thing that you could do. You could kind of go back and see maybe when those encounters with that person on the spirit level started and stopped. Is it just continuing through this other person, or is it something different? So there's a couple of different angles I think that you could take with it. So it's an in-depth question. It's awesome. But I think we just don't have the data on it. In terms of getting into the details, but I hope that helps a little bit. So I wanted to, because Shadow sent in some great questions. Good morning, Shadow, by the way. She's online now. And I wanted to grab this next one because I thought this was so pertinent to what I really wanted to talk about this afternoon. And that is legacies, guys, legacies. You know, how many people, and probably a ton of you, I'm sure you say yes in the chat box if you have this in your family, where you've had paranormal occurrences going on in your family for generations. I know I have, as I say, my great-great-grandfather founded the first paranormal association in Canada. I've got paranormal events and hauntings happening on both sides of my family for years, and it's kind of just trickled down. What I find very, very interesting about legacies in general is people don't realize that when we are passing things down oftentimes we pass things down like lessons. A lot of times we pass things down like, beliefs about, finances, or beliefs about, culture, or stories about your culture, things like that. We don't often realize that we pass down ways of thinking. And it's the one thing that we don't usually pay attention to, which is crazy. It's crazy. One of the most valuable things that you can pass down is how you thought. If you want to really pass something on to your kids, it's probably one of the most valuable things you can do, is pass on how you have thought, so that they can learn from it. And when we don't think about this, but think about how powerful it is when we are kind of absorbing the general way of thought or of being from a family or from the extended family. You're growing up in this headspace, and what that can do to start to shape your view of the world. It's a big deal. So when we take that and we apply it to what we know about hauntings and paranormal events and occurrences and stuff like this, it becomes a little bit more clear as to why it seems sometimes like we are passing down phenomena from one person to the next person. So Shadow's question is a great one, and she said, I hear people say all the time that being psychic is hereditary. Do you know of any proof of this? If there isn't proof to support that statement, then do you think it is possible a DNA memory, like we discussed, such as epigenetics, or being on that higher vibration, makes it easier for other family members in the same family to reach that vibration because it's stronger, or they are more able to tune into it? And this is I love this, because, as I say, when we're looking at legacies and what we're passing down to people, when we are marinating with our families as kids, we really are learning a vibrational habit. We really are. We're learning a vibrational habit. If you've grown up with a lack of money, for instance, lack of finances, if you've grown up with a really abundant house and had never known lack, or you've grown up in a situation where you are witnessing a lot of violence, or maybe you experienced a loss or abandonment as a kid, or maybe you had really a great childhood and it was so much fun, you've got all these good memories. How we marinate and sit in that experience is really indicative of how we move forward and through our experience, and how we then end up experiencing paranormal phenomena. So for example, you grew up in a family where it was just a negative list of paranormal events. And I'll use myself as an example here, because my grandmother on my dad's side absolutely believed that the paranormal was just bad. It was just bad. It was evil. It was terrible. Nobody should be involved in it. It was very old school thinking. But her experiences were really, really, really scary. She had some really frightening things happen. She was living in a situation where her husband was very emotionally abusive. He was heavily depressed all the time. She had a lot of kids. She had 9 kids, so she was really overworked, and whatnot. So the reflection that she got back of that paranormal phenomenon was not fun. She was experiencing really terrifying things. And the next thing you know, within the family, her very similar terrifying experiences. So, for example, one of my uncles is still having a horrible time with this stuff, but again, struggles with things like depression, doesn't really have any interest in improving that side of things, so there's this, again, we see this pattern of thought that's never been broken, that's never been broken up or challenged in any way. And we see it begin to be pervasive within a family. So if we look at that and we think to ourselves, hey, wait a minute, is this something where people are just, my family's cursed, or it's, there's no hope for this, or, I don't know what to do, this is just the way it's been, or are you following a pattern of thought that now needs to be broken? And it really can shift with your individual perspective. So as I said, I love Shadow's question about this. So is there proof that psychic is hereditary? No, there isn't. It doesn't seem to be a pathology, but the pathology where it starts is really within the family's thinking. So when it comes to being psychic in general, the people that are more attuned to this stuff do have certain characteristics and traits, however, which I think some of it can be learned. Some of it's just personality, just how you are as an individual. But there are personality traits that have been associated with being more intuitive. People that typically are a little bit more outgoing, people that are more open just within their world or their belief systems, people that are more willing to connect with others, people that have more of an open mind when it comes to trying new things or believing certain things in terms of going in for, say, an experiment. They're open to the idea that it will work, where people that are completely closed off and say, I don't believe in this is stupid, they actually have worse results when it comes to a test like a Gansfeld or something like that. So there are personality traits that do start to show up repeatedly with people who are more intuitive, and also people who are able to become a little bit more meditative, who are a little bit more introspective, those who are a little bit more willing to be insightful and still, typically will have more experiences. So this is something that's been studied, and it's not an opinion. There's been numerous universities at this point that have come to these conclusions. So it's interesting because there are patterns, but it doesn't seem to be something that is necessarily passed down in some sort of a genetic way or something like that. But I think when we talk about things like family legacy, I think it is so important to realize where some of our old thinking comes from. I do this this bit in my live shows often. I have this one live show called Phenomena and another one called Creating the Paranormal. And I do a little bit with fire eating, because oftentimes people's the story we tell ourselves, right? About things like the paranormal, things like, what should be or shouldn't be in our lives. We have a very set story about a lot of things. And when we start to be able to shift that paradigm, we really start to be able to break down and open ourselves up to brand new possibilities. So for example, when I use fire in my shows, the one thing I ask my audience, how many people got the lecture when they were kids, you don't touch fire ever, it's hot, it'll burn you, and I ask people to put their hands up. Of course, everybody puts their hands up because everybody remembers getting scolded for, don't touch the candle or things like that. And I always let them know there is always the loophole. There's always the loophole. And if I can change your mind about something like fire, if I can show you another alternative to your story, then the rest of this stuff you have to start to open up to, because I want to break down your paradigm about it. So I end up doing a little bit of fire eating and stuff like that for them, and touching the flame, and stuff like that. And there's never anything on my hands. It's simply science. It really does come down to science. And my point in doing this is always, fire is definitely hot. Fire can definitely do damage. It can definitely burn. It's all of those things have truth in it. We know that can be one of the most destructive forces in the world. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a loophole. That we can turn around and touch it and manipulate it, depending, of course, on the science that you're using, the fuels that you're using, the state of the fuel you're using, all of these different things. There is absolutely a way to do it if you know what you're dealing with, if you know what the educational and the science information is behind it. There is a way to do it. And so you can't just shut it out and say fire is untouchable, because it's just not. That's just not true. So I always use that in my live shows, because it is such a profound visual. And I will do this for you guys as soon as it gets a little bit nicer outside. We'll do a spiritual healthcare class outside, and whatnot, and I will play around with that for you so you guys can see and have fun with it. But it's one of those things. We have to challenge our paradigms. Just because we've learned it over and over and over and over again from generation after generation after generation doesn't necessarily mean it's the entire truth. We have to start examining what we've learned, what our paradigms are, and start to pay attention to what is it exactly we're believing and why. Why are we believing this? Is it something that we've just been told or been frightened into, or is it something that actually is holding weight? So it's something we definitely have to pay attention to. Our paradigms, when we break them down and we can change those legacies, we can start to pass on brand new information to our people, to our kids, to our friends and family, and start breaking some toxic cycles, especially when it comes to the paranormal and hauntings and things like that. But it applies to all of it. It just is so key. So the process that I wanted to give you guys today in regards to this, I want you guys to start thinking about your own paradigms about who you are. So, because that's some of the worst that we get into. People start really getting attached to the labels that they've even been given by their families or by the people around them, or they've gotten attached to labels that they've just given themselves. And a lot of the time we're either really stuck in figuring out what we are in relationship to our job, or we're stuck labeling ourselves from a time period that was 15, 16 years ago, or maybe 20, 30 years ago, that just doesn't matter anymore. We're not there anymore. So my friend Patricia and I have been having so much fun with this new process, and I wanted to share it with you guys because it is so cool. We have started to look at, are we living from our now with who we are in this moment, or are we living and believing from a place that we were in 15, 16 years ago? Now, we don't even have to go back that far, because honestly, who we were even last month, considering what has happened over the last little while, has been pretty crazy. So it may have changed for you between last month and this month. It might be that big of a shift. But what we've been doing is we've been sitting down with our journals, and we've been writing down all of the labels about who we are from this moment. Not from last year, not from what our families have told us, not from what our relatives have told us or our bosses, but who we are right in this moment. Who are you? Can you write it down? Can you start identifying it? And as we've worked through these labels, worked through these names, we've been having some really interesting discoveries, places that we've had to go with ourselves that we didn't realize, man, we aren't owning this. There's some good things about us that we have not owned yet. And the ability to turn around and write this down and look at those from a standpoint of, can I sit and own who I am right now? Definitely check it out, give it a try, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with, because I think it's going to be super cool. We have been having a blast with this process. I also wanted to give you guys a really, really great to-do, but before I do that, we've got a fantastic reading this afternoon. Fantastic. And it comes from Faith in the Valley by Iyanla Vanzant. Really applicable to the process and talking about legacies today. So I'm going to read this to you guys because I think this is so unbelievably important. So here we go. Are you living your life, or are you living your mother's life? Perhaps you're living a life that your father told you to live. Maybe your life was custom built for you by your husband, your sister, or the system. Does your life suit your needs? Is it too big for you? Is it too small for you? Is your life satisfactory? Do you live in your life or around it? Do you dare do what you want to do, or are you consumed by doing what you have been told to do? It is very easy to get stuck living your life for others, doing what they want you to do in order for them to get what they need. There is a very delicate balance between my life, our lives, and your life. When you are not clear about who you are, what you need, and what you want, the balance can be tipped against your favor. You need to reclaim your life and live it. Be sure to do it. You can accomplish this by taking time for yourself or to take care of yourself. You must also be sure to let people know what you need and to be willing to say no to what they need without feeling guilty about it. And I think this is just so relevant. Jan, you're right. I told you I was going to, this is page 177. So this is probably such a fantastic reading, because we really do have to look at our legacies. Grab your journals, you guys, and start writing some of this out and start to think about this, because man, it is a powerful exercise. So I want to give you guys a to-do today as well that will send you guys through the roof, because it's just so much fun to go through this stuff. I want to introduce you guys to something called Soul Pancake. Okay, soulpancake.com. And Soul Pancake was actually developed by Rainn Wilson. For those of you guys who are Office fans, because yeah, I loved The Office when it was on. It was so good. So Rainn Wilson, who played Dwight Schrute on The Office, he developed something called Soul Pancake, and it's all about uplifting things to either like information, exercises, all of that, and they've got a massive YouTube channel. Like it's an amazing channel. It's really good. So I want you guys, if you get time throughout your day, check out soulpancake.com. I will put the link on Entity Seeker, and you guys can go and just have fun with it. There's so much to do. There's so much to watch. The news stories and things like that are they're just the best. Like they will make your day. You can. And they have new videos every week. Like every week they update it, and they do all sorts of awesome stuff on Soul Pancake. So they have these little news segments, and they do like just really fun things. And as I say, their information is so poignant and life-changing and uplifting that it is 100% worth just exploring their site and checking it out. So if you guys have time, go and do that, because it is really, really cool. Speaking of YouTube and stuff like that, for those of you guys who are new this morning, you guys can catch up on all of the spiritual healthcare classes on youtube.com/entityseeker. Okay, all of the YouTube classes are there, and they're also on entityseeker.ca as well. They're all on the media and video section. I update them as soon as we get done here. I throw them up on YouTube and the Entity Seeker website, so you guys can check that out too. So they're always there. If you guys want to go back on something, or you missed one or something like that, you can always go there and check it out. And this Saturday, for those of you guys in America, hello Americans, Paranormal 911 will debut on Travel Channel. It will debut on Travel Channel. Yeah, Shadow says she can't find number 4 on YouTube. I mislabeled them. I totally mislabeled them. They're all there. But I kept them in sync with the Facebook numbers and whatnot. So this is actually probably day 24, not day 25. But I've just kept them in sync with so there is no 4. I'm a number illiterate. For those of you guys who don't know this, okay, I am number illiterate. Don't ask me to do math. It is like, you can ask me any questions, just not math. So anyway, that's why there's no number 4. My own fault. All right. So everybody, yes, Travel Channel, Paranormal 911. This Saturday night, I am excited about you guys being able to see it. Canada has had season 2 now for a while, and it's really good. There's some cool stuff in there, and there's some good episodes this year. So I'm hoping you guys will enjoy it too. So everybody, our health affirmations, we got to do them. Got to go into our day on the right note. Everybody, take a breath. It is natural for my body to be well. Even if I don't know what to do in order to get better, my body does. I have trillions of cells with individual consciousness, and they know how to achieve individual balance. When this condition began, I didn't know what I know now. I don't need to understand the cause of this illness. I only have to gently, eventually release this illness. It doesn't matter how it got started, because it's reversing its course right now. There's no hurry about any of this. My body knows what to do. Well-being is natural to me. My inner being is intricately aware of my physical body. My cells are asking for what they need in order to thrive, and Source is answering those requests. I'm in very good hands. My only work is to relax and breathe. And I can do that easily. Everybody take a breath. Thank you guys so much for another wonderful morning with Spiritual Healthcare. We've got lots to chat about tomorrow, as always. I'm looking forward to receiving more of your guys' questions, because your questions have been wonderful. And I love, they're so in-depth. They're so in-depth and they're so powerful. So please message me, Twitter me, email me, all of that stuff. And send me in your questions, because they are really what fuels so much of what spiritual healthcare is about, and what we're doing right now. And I think, and share it, share the videos, and whatnot. The more people we bring in, again, Shadow says she looks forward to this every single day. I do too. I really do. This helps get me up in the morning. I love being able to hang out with you guys and do this every day. It is fantastic. It's such a joy, and it's so nice to know that it's helping everybody move through this, because I think we all need each other right now. We don't need to be blaming people and pointing fingers and who started what and this kind of crap. Like, we need to tune that out, and we need to be there for one another right now and help each other, because that's how we get through this stuff. Okay, so everybody, be safe, stay home, and go check out Soul Pancake. I'll post the link. Okay, bye everybody.